Hey, it's JB Surge. This was supposed to be a two-part episode, but the second part of it is already outdated because I've been so busy with life lately. So you're only going to get part one of this episode. So here you go.
The following program is being brought to you by Loving's Moon, Tim and Jerry's Auto Sales, Garden Bowl, American Gratitude, Patrick Dugan's Coffee House, and AAA Loans and U-Haul. You've stumbled upon the Anti-Genre Podcast. There is no topic or theme, just a bunch of organized randomness. A Power Surge Media production. You are listening to Uncaged.
That's right. It is Uncaged, episode number 40. Thanks for joining us wherever, however, and whenever you may be listening. I am JB Surge, and sitting right next to me, finally, his return, Snipes. How's it going, man? Oh, wait, hold on. There we go. There we go.
I get a microphone.
There you go. So
I'm alive. I'm breathing.
So you are. But it's first of all, it's great to at least be with you in our studio again, our home studio.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, you're doing well.
I'm doing a lot better. In fact, I'm real good today. Yeah. I actually got to go outside.
Oh.
Yeah. I saw a sun. Went to lunch, and then I was ready for a nap. So that's about the extent of my day.
Kind of like the homeschoolers on their first field trip outside.
Exactly.
Thanks for letting us out.
Oh yeah, it was awesome. I had a caretaker take me out.
Oh, yeah.
And what I reached for, what got my hand swatted or I didn't, it depended on, it's like relearning it all over again.
I get you. Anyways, well, we're not going to have you on the whole episode because I know that you're kind of tied down over here. So, in more ways than one,
I'm on an oxygen bottle.
Yeah. So, but we were going to have you on, especially for our third guest here at the table, is a very concerned spouse of yours.
My caretaker during
your
the whole
caretaker.
Thing,
that's right.
My medical power of attorney during this whole ordeal. She knows a little bit more about what went on because I was in and out of the whole thing. So she's gonna
drink too much. Oh no, never mind.
Yeah.
Never take breathing for granted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, well, and that's
I had pneumonia.
Yeah. In your return, I wanted to let the listeners know that yes, Snipes is okay. Yes, he's missed the past few episodes, but we wanted to tell you what was going on because it is the story is very complex, and so that's why I brought your concerned spouse, power of attorney, licensed medical professional, whatever you want to call her. All three are very true. So, anyways, Like I was about to mention, on the week of episode 37, which we did with Lexus and Michael about our first week of league season, the bowling league season.
Oh, yeah.
But during that week, you were not here in our studio, in our house. You were somewhere else. You happened to get incarcerated in...
I think I was still here.
Were you still here?
But because I think it was the next day.
No, it was that's right. It was the either the next day.
Next day, I got hauled away.
You got incarcerated in the prison known as I won't name the hospital actually. So
yeah,
because they don't deserve being named after what's been happening. But anyways, I'll let you go ahead and kind of take it from that morning of his incarceration.
Well, we kind of need to back up a little bit because he exhibited COVID symptoms before he actually went to the hospital. And I had also, 3 days or 4 days ahead of him.
Right.
And I had contacted America's Frontline Doctors and got the medication that is to cure COVID. So when that was sent in, I had enough for both of us. And so once he started having symptoms, I treated him also. So he completed the course of hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, and budesonide inhalation solution prior to going into the hospital.
And he hasn't grown a mane yet, so we're
right.
good.
We're doing good. But I didn't have enough ivermectin, hence we did have to go the horse paste route. And but the thing was, he was having trouble breathing prior to when we actually went to the hospital, and he continued to not eat and not drink. And so we were losing ground and saw that, and he finally admitted, yes, it's time. So we went to the ER.
Time to get some treatment.
Right. And of course, at the hospital nowadays, nobody can go but the patient. So they whisk him away. And I had packed his bag with his BiPAP and his favorite blanket and some cough drops. And so they did take that with him. And
surprised you didn't pack Fireball too. I mean, I'll tell you what.
If he could have got it snuck in there, he probably would have. But anyway, he did. They did do the test on him and everything, and he was dehydrated, and so they got him IVs pretty quickly. They could tell that he was struggling to breathe, so they got him on oxygen, and decided that he needed to stay. They needed to admit him, and at that point, they still had hospital beds available. So
apparently, well, and that's the thing. According to the stigma that is everywhere, that hospitals are insanely full, and there's no beds anywhere. It's on the contrary to what's been going on at our local hospital.
Actually, it's the beds that they are able to staff are full.
Yes,
they just don't have enough staff to take care of all the patients to fill all the beds.
Right.
And not all of the rooms are COVID rooms.
Right.
They have specific rooms that are negative air rooms.
Right.
Where the air is just recirculated and pushed back out the window. Mm-hmm. And so they don't have a limited number of those rooms. And since I was a positive, they decided to...
They did do the positive. They did a COVID test, and he was positive, which we had not done a COVID test prior to that. We were just going from the symptoms, and we quarantined. So we were doing what we would have done had we had that test. Right. We took care of all that we could. Now, I turned around quickly. I'm O positive, and they say that blood type is the best blood type to have if you're going to be fighting COVID, because it does fight it well. His is not so good, and which he's had a history of lung issues, and so I think we already had some strikes against us to start with. But then once we finally got there, I thought, okay, well, at home we had been doing albuterol and budesonide in the nebulizer. So that helps open up the lungs and helps inflammation in the lungs.
Right.
And so when he went to the hospital, I thought, well, then they can just really take care of this really good then. But I was wrong, because they don't do nebulizers in the hospital because of it nebulizing the COVID along with everything else. And so we were told that they haven't done it for over a year, and so they don't do that. But they did put him on some IV antibiotics, which the antibiotics are for secondary infections, because COVID is a virus, and a virus needs an antiviral. Though they have found out that azithromycin plus zinc is also a cure, that they can get COVID taken care of. But when I talked to the nurse practitioner, my requests for zinc and vitamin D and vitamin C were all told. First she said, sure. And then she said, no, that they're not in the system, that they can't give that. And if I wanted him to have it, I needed to bring it to the hospital and give it to the hospital pharmacy, and then the hospital pharmacy would dispense it to him.
Which, by the way, we've already, by the time you had left and he was admitted, we already figured out that trusting the simplest of hospital staff was not the greatest idea in the world.
With the errand I sent you on.
With errands in general, really. I mean, I tell you what.
The one thing I didn't pack in his bag, and now I know mentally, cell phone charger. Those are important. And so I sent you down to get that to him. And that was about 5:30 that afternoon that he was admitted. And by 9:30 that night, no cell charger. So I started in trying to figure out how to get that, find it, and get it to him. And a sweet gal at the desk, at the nurse's desk outside, took it upon herself to figure it out. And she called me back within 20 minutes and said, it's been found and he has it. So she was awesome.
Good.
So,
and in that bag was the vitamin C, the zinc, and the D. And so I just took that on myself.
There you go.
I went ahead and I didn't bother the people at the hospital. I'm just going to take it.
Sure.
And so I did that.
Go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, and take all of this on top of it. So we will get things taken care of and nobody has to know.
Some kind of bootleg action there.
Right.
Yeah. It wasn't Fireball, but it was necessities.
100%.
Yes. So we did have that part taken care of. And then going in, though, we told them no ventilator. And Wes told him that in the ER, told him again when he got to the room, no ventilator. And so then when the hospital...
Kind of like a verbal DNR.
Well...
Yeah, basically, I wasn't going to do ventilator. I was going to either walk out or get carried out, but not with a ventilator.
No ventilator, right.
Right.
But once the hospitalist and her nurse practitioner and several of her entourage came in to see him on Friday, they said that they needed to start remdesivir, which is the drug that is also under emergency use authorization. So it still has lots of experimental stuff to it. But that's the one that happens to be in the protocol at most hospitals, saying that is what you give to the patient because it's supposed to decrease the virus from replicating. So, which is all good if it's, you're at the beginning.
Exactly. And he was not at the beginning.
That's exactly right. He was on day 11 when he went into the emergency room, day 12 by the time this doctor saw him. And he tried to explain to him, and they were busy talking amongst themselves and over him, and he didn't really have a whole lot of say-so. And so I called and said, I want to talk to the doctor, and the nurse practitioner called me. And so they were already a little bit upset because we had said no remdesivir, and they couldn't understand why we would deny treatment. And so when I talked to the nurse practitioner, she explained to me what it actually does. And I said,
yeah,
I understood that part. But I said, if it's within the first 72 hours, you're looking good. But once you move on, the risk versus benefit, which means there is not much benefit, but a whole lot of risk, then it gets bad. And I said, he's on day 12. And she said, well, we still see it helping up until day 14. And I said, well, I don't want him to have that. But at one point they had come in and had gotten an okay from him, but it wasn't okay to do that. It was, okay, I need to do something. But of course, once again, they weren't really listening to him, which I'd already told them that he needed an advocate because, this is something he was kind of out of it and he needed some help, but that was not ever taken care of. No one was ever there for him.
It's almost like they wanted to take advantage of the fact that he was not quite all there.
That's how I took it. Because, what would you say when you say what you want and they don't do what it is that you want?
And you kind of wonder about those people that don't have any medical training or background, who haven't done their studies and looking at it. You kind of wonder about those people who don't know, and they just say, well, yeah, I guess, because that's what you authorized. I was lucky that I had her understanding the situation.
Well, and having going to school and being licensed as a pharmacist, you would know certain drugs and how they would work and what they would do to you. So it wasn't like you were completely stupid and naive to all this.
Right. And this is something new that I've done more research on. Of course, all this is not anything about what we've learned. You have to kind of dig for this because the mainstream media and all social media, they don't want you to know all this stuff.
No.
But if you dig deep enough and open up anything that tells you about remdesivir, it tells you that it kills your kidneys and your liver. I mean, that's one of the side effects if you're on it long enough. And so when I was talking to the nurse practitioner, I said, he's got that one dose, but no more if I want him to be monitored for the side effects. And she wanted to know what side effects. And I said, kidneys and liver. And the very next morning at 5 o'clock when they draw your blood, his liver enzymes shot through the roof. And I said, stop. No more. No, I don't want another dose of that. Though they did keep him on the 2 antibiotics, and I told her that I was fine with that, especially since I knew that we were already had some zinc available for him to take along with that.
Right.
But I had asked her for an albuterol, that's when I was asking about the nebulizer. And she said that they didn't do that. And I said, well, I need him to have something to help open up his lungs. And she said, well, we could use an inhaler. And they used the inhaler with a spacer. Got that down there Saturday. I guess I talked to her again on Saturday. And then Saturday is when she ordered it. And then, so here he was there Thursday and until Saturday had nothing going into his lungs. He's there for his lungs because of the pneumonia with nothing helping on that end of it. And so she got it brought down to him and they gave him one treatment and put it on the shelf. And then no one else came in or anything. So I was telling him to get it and give it to himself. But of course, that's really not what you're supposed to do because hospital policy and whatever.
Protocol and all that.
Yeah. And so, which we had already had our little discussion about protocol. And I was told that they've had this protocol for over a year and they have it set up. And
but that's the thing.
I shouldn't question it.
That's the thing. The protocol begins on day one, but we weren't on day one.
Right.
So. And
they wouldn't listen to that part either. But,
no.
So anyway, but I did tell her, there's been no albuterol, and I said, I want a steroid in his lungs too. I want budesonide. She said, we don't have that, but we do have Dulera. And I said, okay, that's a steroid. We'll do that. Okay, so I'm thinking that she's gotten this taken care of. So then that was on Saturday, and we kind of rocked along, and I asked him, any breathing treatments? No. And that was on Sunday prior to Labor Day on Monday. So he just kind of marked it up as holiday thing. And I said, no, COVID doesn't take a holiday. You're in the hospital. It's a 24-hour thing. And so by Monday at noon, I finally get a hold of the nurse practitioner again. And she looks it up and thought maybe that they just put it as needed instead of routinely. And so she made sure that was changed to every 6 hours. So when I talked to him that night, so you got another breathing treatment, right? And he said, no. And so I contacted Respiratory that night, and it was after 8 o'clock. Respiratory came to his room and gave him the treatment on that albuterol. And I said, but we're supposed to have a steroid also. And he did not see that.
Where's the steroid?
Yeah, that because you need to treat it. He was they gave him the dexamethasone steroid by mouth, but you need to treat that topically too. It needs to go on the inside of the lungs to help the inflammation that way too. And so we did finally get a hold of a steroid, and they gave him one dose, and then the respiratory therapist that night was the same guy that next night. And then when he got it out to give it to him, the label said 200 and the inside bottle said 100. So he didn't give it to him. Wrong strength. And so he said, I got to talk to the pharmacy. We'll take care of this. And so that was, we just missed the steroid the one time. At least he had something that the morning of, and then the next morning they had the right dose and they used the right stuff. And so that was on Tuesday. He got Tuesday and Wednesday, both days had full treatments on those days, and had the antibiotics on Tuesday. And I think they did all the blood work and decided he didn't have a secondary infection, so they didn't need to do the antibiotics again for the next day. But then he was released on Thursday.
Right.
So I said, with 2 full days of treatment, we could have done that Thursday and Friday and had him out by Saturday. But also what was alarming was a very high level of oxygen. And I ask about that because extreme high level of oxygen can cause tissue damage to your lungs. And I was told, too, that not having enough oxygen does tissue damage. So I understand that, but we're not talking about none and 10 liters of oxygen. He was on a 10, and it really scared me. But so she had said that they had done 6 before, and then they tried to get it down to 4, and they had to turn it back up. So I said, well, what's the plan? And I could never be given a plan. I wanted to know what's the process.
It seems like there was more improvisation at this point because their protocol got screwed up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I messed up everything that they wanted to do. I mean, I let them do the steroid, but the remdesivir was just not it. And so likewise, we were watching his kidneys, and his kidneys were doing great. So it did not do damage to his kidneys.
Good.
But also the COVID can attack the liver and cause some liver inflammation. Hepatitis is kind of what they call it. And so it could be some of the COVID, not just the remdesivir, but the coincidence of it, him having COVID as long as he did, and when he went in and his liver enzymes were fine, and then after that dose jumped, was like, yeah. But anyway, so he did survive all of that. And the night that he did not get the respiratory guy realized it was the wrong dose of steroid. That night they had a whole bunch of people or an emergency or something, and he was ready to go to bed. So he had oxygen on one side of the bed was the cannula that he wore during the day, and on the other side it was connected to his BiPAP that he put on at night.
Right.
Well, they turned one on, turned the other one off, because you don't need them both at the same time.
Right.
Well, so they hadn't come in and turned on the oxygen on his BiPAP yet, and he was ready to to lay down, go to sleep. So he took his cannula off and put on his BiPAP, and it was an hour and a half that he went with no extra oxygen, just room oxygen.
Well, I was going to say, albeit it wasn't like he didn't go without any oxygen.
Just
there
was in the room.
There was that, of course, that pressurized air that
happens with the BiPAP.
The BiPAP, yeah.
And so when the nurse came in, he said, "Oh no, we have to have oxygen." So they put the oxygen on. So he wasn't ever told when they were adjusting the oxygen. I think they looked at his oxygen saturation that was on the monitor along with his heart rate and blood pressure and all that. And I think they had, their protocol of if it's this, you do that. And if it's this, and so he is a mouth breather and a very shallow breather.
Right.
And so he always runs on the lower side. I mean, we've had lots of times where he's been, mid 90s.
Right.
But I think every time they saw it get down to the low 90 to 89 and 88, they turned it up just a little bit,
yep.
And so I'm sure that's how we got to 10. But the plan to get you back down was what I was concerned with, that I was never told that we would ever have that.
Well,
but
they wanted him at a 3, and then in the 95th, right? 95 percentile or whatever it is.
They first told me if they could get him down to 4, he could go home with oxygen.
Oh, okay, there you go.
And so that was but they wanted, when he was on each step, they wanted him mid 90s,
right?
Which he didn't always keep it up that, because every time he coughed, then it'd drop down, and when he would get up moving around and talking, it would drop down too.
Right.
So they were not super happy with that, but we got the PA came in to see him the last 2 days, and she was excellent.
Helpful PA.
Yes. And so she came in and told me that she's standing here looking at him, and he looks fantastic. And I was like, that's what I've needed all this time. They won't let me in there. All I can do is look at his numbers and then go by what he says. Yeah, I feel okay. Well, that's not exactly, that doesn't give you the whole picture. So, but with the PA standing there saying he looks fantastic, she said he's doing this, he's doing that. He's everything is good. She's called him happily hypoxic, which means low on oxygen, but he's happy.
He's good,
and he looks good, and he's not blue lips or nothing else. So she knew he was okay, and so but that's what I needed. I needed someone to be able to look at him and tell me he's okay.
Yeah,
He
see,
looks okay.
all the nurses, all those were worried about this protocol. They didn't stop to look at him and go, you know what? Not bad.
Yeah, and she's the first one that really went off of him.
Well,
Right.
and we got to remember that Friday was the only time I saw the doctor.
Right. Yeah, the hospitalist came in, and when he told her no remdesivir, she was gone. She never showed back up.
Never came
ever
back.
again.
Wow.
And so, but he was seen by the nurse practitioner and by the PA, but not the doctor. And so I think she did not appreciate at all.
Yeah, did not appreciate the fact that you told her off and whatever this protocol that they have to feel. Like, okay, well, I'm out. Screw this.
And that was the neat thing about the PA, because when she was telling me something and I told her what he needed ivermectin because it was time for his weekly preventative dose.
Right.
And she said, no, wait, that's not on protocol. I said,
Of course, it's not.
well, your protocol is stupid. But and it's not an attack on her. I know she has nothing to do with it, but we had really good nursing care. When they came in, they were attentive to do what it is they were supposed to do, but nobody was really saying, hey, you know what, this guy really, which they did notice the first day, that first Friday when the doctor was there, they were kind of amazed at how he looked compared to the other COVID patients that were coming in, because he had already been treated for COVID, and they didn't know that, and they didn't bother to hear all the rest of the story.
Well, they didn't care to know.
Right. Well, they wouldn't listen to you.
Right.
And that's one of my biggest beefs. Listen to the patient. If you're not going to listen to the patient, then call me and I'll talk to you.
It's not like he was unconscious the whole time.
No, he was just foggy, but
Understandably so.
COVID brain.
well,
COVID
when you
brain,
don't
yeah.
have enough oxygen for a little bit, that can happen too. You need everything. And they were concentrating on that high level of lactic acid in your blood. And that was because he wasn't eating and his
Right.
muscles were being torn down. But they gave him a different kind of IV and they got that all cleared up. And we were, good to go on that once we got him nutrition and fluids.
Right.
So, that was...
Yeah, and that was one of the complaints I had at the beginning before we went to the hospital was my shins. The tops of my shin bones were hurting. And yeah.
It was constricting. And
Your muscles were just depleted, and they couldn't get anything more. And so,
but we didn't have that. That didn't click.
Yeah,
For me to say, oh, he's malnourished. Well, I knew he was
Malnourished, yeah.
malnourished because he was not eating but 2 bites of something,
Right.
and nothing else. And
Well,
but
only-
he didn't feel good, so he didn't feel like eating or drinking.
Right.
So
well, and that's when you went to the ER that clicked. It's like, oh, he's dehydrated. He's malnourished. He's not eating. He's not drinking. Oh, that's why we feel like crap.
yeah. Well, and that's how I knew once they gave him his first IV, he goes, I feel amazing. I knew right then it was a dehydration
Intravenous
situation.
fluids for the win.
Which I knew that we were headed that way. I just don't have any way to measure that to know how bad that is. But
Right.
I knew you got to drink lots of water. And that is with COVID, that is with everything.
That's just with everything.
You have to drink
lots of
plenty
water.
of water.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. Got to drink water, otherwise you're going to feel like crap.
Right.
More or less. But I mean, that's the thing. It was only because of the funky blood work and the positive COVID test is the reason why he was admitted.
Right.
Otherwise, he felt fine.
Right.
So
And I think we probably could have come home from the ER
easily.
had we not been told. I don't know. I just think that we could have countered that and we would have done a lot better, except that we wouldn't have had the IV antibiotics.
Right.
Which I don't know how much they played in him getting better besides the azithromycin and zinc. That was the only other thing that's been proven to work on COVID, and we didn't have that prior to him going in.
And of course, the hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin for preventative reasons. So
Right.
There you go.
Yeah. And that's real important, and we can't seem to get people up to date.
No.
They're still kind of listen to Dr., if you want to call him Dr. Fauci.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's fake to me, but from the very beginning, he has been off.
Yeah, and they have been bad-mouthing ivermectin from the beginning. However, I read somewhere while I was in the hospital, probably on TV, that Pfizer is supposed to come out with how do you want to say it?
It's not a vaccine, but
it's a copycat of ivermectin. So they're discounting ivermectin with everyone so that Pfizer can come out with their own version of it, which acts the same way, everything, so they can make money off of it.
Well, not only that, but the fact that Pfizer is now, their vaccine is now, quote unquote, FDA approved.
Not the one that's out, though.
Or CDC approved, or whatever.
No, FDA approved one, but they haven't even started making it. And it won't be available until 2023.
So what they've been approved for is not an inoculation or a vaccine that hasn't ever been made yet. It's not the COVID one. It's something else.
But they have that out there so that they can bait and switch. And so that everybody can think, oh, well, I can get it now because it's approved, but it's not approved.
Yeah.
But you know when Trump came out and said hydroxychloroquine, and they were quick to, oh, no. They stopped that and said, no, that was dangerous. Don't ever try that. And so they got it ruled out where nobody could even use it. And then after their shots came out, then they said, well, hydroxychloroquine might work. That might be okay.
Well, that's the fact is that it was only because the CDC, the World Health Organization, all decided that they're not going to approve hydroxychloroquine for COVID-19 use, and that's why everybody was against it. It was because it wasn't approved by these two big health organizations.
But you know why they wouldn't approve it? Because they wanted their vaccine out, and you can't bring out a vaccine for a disease that has a cure.
Exactly.
And so if they prove that hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin and budesonide cured the COVID, then it'd be against the law. I mean, I'm sure they'd get around it because they have already, but that was their thing. And so as soon as they could get it on the market, then they could start letting people out with that. But they were saying, oh, it's not approved. Still, they'll tell you hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin are not approved for
the treatment
COVID. But
and you also
guess what? The shot is not approved
either.
And neither is remdesivir. So those are not approved, though hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin are FDA approved, just not for that diagnosis. But there's hundreds and hundreds of drugs out there that are used, and they call it off-label. They use it for stuff other than what's been approved because they found out it works.
Right.
So if it works, why? And
why don't you go for it?
Yeah. And so and
you got to remember that I probably got the N variant or the Delta variant is what I got sick from. The COVID vaccine does not help
done anything
under the Delta variant. And in fact, everybody that's getting sick from COVID right now are getting the Delta variant. So the vaccine or shot or jab or whatever you got last year will not stop it from this point. And it will always mutate into something to avoid something else.
That's how the virus works. It just
virus works.
And so it'll always mutate.
Right.
And so
that's why you get the flu shot every year.
But that's not effective every year because it's not always for the same one.
Right.
And it's mutated by the time we get it because they built it off of one from another country.
Sure.
But still, on this shot that they brought out, even at the beginning, you're supposed to be informed before you can say yes or no.
Right.
Well, they do not inform you because they don't tell you what's in it because they don't publicize that.
Right.
But they also did have in their studies that it does not prevent infection and it does not prevent passing along the infection.
Yeah.
What it's supposed to do is maybe help lessen the symptoms that you get.
Mild your symptoms, yeah.
But maybe. That was not a guarantee.
Yeah.
But that's what they brought that out for. And now here we have, all these people that have died from the shot. They're over 14,000 now, just that we know of, because not everything is reported to VAERS through the CDC, because they used to didn't really know a lot about it, but that's a lot of paperwork too. And, some people just don't really want to do the paperwork.
Well,
so they say
everybody,
CDC.
Everybody believes that if you got the jab, you won't get COVID.
Well, that's the funny thing is that back in 2020, I don't know I couldn't remember what the statistic. I want to say 2.1 something on million cases of COVID last year when there wasn't a vaccine available. There is now a 200% increase in COVID positive cases when there's a vaccine available.
71%.
Well, they're blaming all those that are unvaxxed, but that's not the truth.
Nope.
And that's the sad part is the people are not being told the truth, and they weren't told the truth from the get-go.
No.
The vaccine kills, and they're not telling people that. And there's well over 500,000 people that have been harmed from that shot, and they're not wanting anybody to hear that either.
Right.
And so they're keeping all of that under wraps. But the CDC will admit themselves that the VAERS is on their website, and they admitted that they feel like they have 1 to 10% reporting. So if even 10% equals 14,000, how much is 90%?
Yeah, exactly.
So there's way more deaths out there that are not being reported.
And you're not hearing the high-profile cases like
Eric Clapton.
Right.
For 3 to 4 weeks after he got the jab, he couldn't play his guitar. He thought he had just lost his livelihood.
Right.
And so he says he still has effects in his hands that he can't perform. And so
it's terrible.
And anybody that speaks out against, they're
shut
brought down.
There's
been several celebrities have said, "Do not get it. This happened to me," and they're blacklisted now. They're blackballed. They just can't. It's sad because anytime you tell the truth, that's when you're going to get censored, and so that's exactly what has happened.
Well, you were talking about Anthony Fauci, and apparently Scotland came up with a word for it. His name is cockwomble. It's a person, usually male, prone to making outrageously stupid statements and or inappropriate behavior, while generally having a very high opinion of their own wisdom and importance.
Whoa, that nailed it. That's him.
He's a cockwomble.
Cockwomble. Okay.
Thank you, Scotland.
Yes.
So, but yeah, anyways, those of you that were wanting to know about Snipes, he is perfectly fine. He's progressing.
I'm getting stronger every day.
Still on oxygen, let's not say perfectly.
He's not perfect, but he's
but he's way better than he was.
Happily hypoxic. We're gonna that's gonna be the title of the podcast. I think is what we're gonna go with. Happily hypoxic. So, but Snipes, you're doing well.
I am
You're feeling good.
Yeah,
feeling good. Got the oxygen.
I'm still in the green. So yeah.
Hey, there you go. But thank you so much for joining us, because that it sheds some light on people that may be in similar situations that are going, why isn't my relative healthy, or why are they still in the hospital? It's been a month, 2 months. They're still in there, and they're screwed up.
I've heard from people that have gone in after me now, and they're on the ventilator.
And they were vaxxed.
And they were vaxxed.
So doesn't prevent you from getting the disease, folks.
Well, disclaimer, I am not an anti-vaxxer. I've been vaccinated, and I've vaccinated my children.
But do your research.
But this is not a vaccine.
Do your research, folks.
Yeah, this is an inoculation.
Vaccines, hepatitis, A, B, C, however many, tuberculosis, tetanus, all those vaccines have been thoroughly researched, released to the public, and actually prevent those types of diseases.
And the key on that is safe and effective. And how exactly is 14,000 deaths plus safe? At what point is our threshold?
Yeah, and it used to be, the rule was if you lost 10 in a trial.
The swine flu one, they pulled that. There was 50 deaths, I think, and they immediately pulled that right away.
Nope, we're not doing it. Yeah,
just 50. So I'm like, when are we going to reach? At what point?
Yeah.
Which they're keeping all that hidden anyway. So it's just sad, but people be informed. Don't go
do your research.
Just because they come along and saying, "Oh, it's our protocol." Doesn't mean it's the best.
It's our protocol. The CDC recommends. The WHO recommends.
NIH.
Recommendations are,
Yeah.
not are
Do
to
the
be taken with a
research,
grain of salt.
Decide on your own.
Yeah.
This is still your health.
A little fact there on the NIH.
Yeah.
The director of the NIH, which approves some of this stuff, Fauci's wife.
Oh,
So
how about that?
Can we say in cahoots?
Yeah, thoroughly. But anyways, thanks so much for joining us on episode 40.
Thanks for listening to Uncaged. Tune in next week for more. This has been brought to you by Loving's Moon, Tim and Jerry's Auto Sales, Garden Bowl, American Gratitude, Patrick Dugan's Coffee House, and AAA Loans and U-Haul.